If someone had told Chinedu, the skinny, barefoot boy from Onitsha who once slept beside a kitchen door, that one day he would own the mansion where he was once beaten for touching leftover food, he would have laughed and said, "It reached my turn." Impossible. But life has a strange sense of humor. It hides kings inside servants, wealth inside wounds, and destiny inside the dust of suffering. Chinedu was 14 when his uncle sent him to Lagos to serve and learn business. That was the phrase people used to disguise child labor as opportunity. He ended up working as a houseboy for the Obioras, a wealthy couple who lived in a marble-floored duplex in Ikeja. Mr. Obiora was a businessman with a booming electronics company. Madame Obiora was a socialite whose voice could cut through walls. Every morning, Chinedu woke before dawn to sweep the compound, wash cars, boil water, and cook breakfast he wasn't allowed to taste. He had one rule: don't complain. His pay was a promise. "We'll settle you when you finish your years of service." Life in that house was a daily test of patience. Madame shouted at him for breathing too loudly, and her children treated him like furniture. Yet Chinedu kept a gentle spirit. He worked fast, remembered details, and learned silently. Every evening, after chores, he would sit outside by the generator light, scribbling numbers on the floor with a stick, learning multiplication from old newspapers he found in the trash. One day, he whispered, "I'll count my own money." Not theirs. The turning point came one Sunday. Mr. Obiora's driver fell ill, and Chinedu was asked to deliver a package to the company's warehouse. When he arrived, he found the workers arguing about a missing invoice and a shipment that had disappeared. Chinedu didn't say a word, but while sweeping the office later, he noticed something strange. The so-called missing boxes were stacked behind the storage room, hidden under tarpaulin. He quietly took note of the batch numbers and dates, wrote them down on a piece of carton, and returned home. The next week, when auditors came to inspect, he slipped the note into one of their files anonymously. The discovery saved the company millions. The thief, a senior manager, was arrested. Nobody knew who exposed it. But a few days later, Mr. Obiora called Chinedu to his office. "You're the only one who goes to that warehouse," he said, eyes narrowing. "Did you see anything?" Chinedu hesitated, then nodded. The man studied him for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "You're smart. You could have stayed quiet, but you chose truth. I like that." That was the first time anyone had ever told Chinedu, "I like you." From that day, everything changed. Mr. Obiora moved him from house chores to office errands. He taught him basic accounting, gave him an old calculator, and started calling him Boy Accountant. Madame didn't like it. She sneered that he was getting proud, but her husband ignored her. Within 2 years, Chinedu could record sales, balance petty cash, and write invoices perfectly. When his service years ended, Mr. Obiora called him in and said, "You've earned your settlement." He handed him N150,000, more money than Chinedu had ever seen. But more valuable than the cash was the lesson: hard work opens doors, but integrity keeps them open. Chinedu rented a single room in Agege and started a small electronics stand using his savings. At first, business was slow. He repaired radios and sold second-hand chargers. But he had a secret weapon: honesty. If a customer's item was too old to fix, he said so. If someone overpaid, he returned the change. Word spread fast. "Go to that small boy near the junction, he no dey cheat." Within a year, his business tripled. He reinvested, buying small consignments from wholesalers. By the 3rd year, he was supplying accessories to shops across Lagos. He named his business Nedutech Ventures, using his childhood nickname. Then fate came calling again. One afternoon he saw a newspaper ad. Obiora Electronics seeks distributor for regional partnership. His heart raced. That was his former boss's company. He applied quietly, submitting all the requirements under his new business name. Weeks passed, then came an invitation. When he walked into the office, dressed in a clean shirt and borrowed tie, Madame Obiora was the first to recognize him. She gasped, "You! What are you doing here?" Chinedu bowed slightly. "Good afternoon, Ma. I came for the distributor interview." Mr. Obiora, now older and grayer, looked up from his desk. "Chinedu?" he asked, disbelief softening into pride. "You're still in the trade?" "Yes, sir," Chinedu said. "You taught me well." The interview was short. His honesty and record spoke for him. A week later he received the contract. He was officially one of their regional distributors. Business exploded. Chinedu traveled to China, built supplier relationships, and learned how to import directly. Within 5 years, Nedutech Ventures became a household name. He opened branches in Abuja, Port Harcourt, and Enugu. He employed dozens of staff, including other boys who had once served in houses like he did. But destiny wasn't done with its full-circle miracles. One day his secretary rushed in with news. "Sir, Obiora Electronics is being liquidated. They're selling the property in Ikeja, the same duplex where he once washed cars." Chinedu stared at the photo in silence. Then he said quietly, "Buy it." The transaction went through smoothly. 2 weeks later, he stood at the gate of the mansion, now older, confident, and free. When Madame Obiora came to collect her belongings, she froze when she saw him. "You own this place?" she whispered. Chinedu smiled gently. "Life owns no one, Ma. It just changes drivers." She began to cry softly, apologizing for the past. He shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. You gave me a front-row seat to learn what I didn't want to become." He offered her transport money, but she refused. As her car drove away, Chinedu stood there, remembering the small boy who once begged for leftover rice. Now he was feeding families. The house became his company headquarters. On the wall behind his desk hung a simple framed quote, "Integrity is the best capital." Reporters came to interview him, calling him the Houseboy Millionaire. When asked how he turned his life around, he said, "I didn't chase riches. I chased trust. Money follows people who can be trusted with it." His story spread like wildfire across Nigeria. NGOs invited him to speak to apprentices, schools named him a mentor, and young boys in villages started saying, "One day I'll be like Chinedu." Years later, Chinedu started a foundation for orphans and apprentices, helping them learn trades without abuse. He built hostels, offered stipends, and personally mentored many. One evening, while addressing a group of young boys, he said, "When people call you servant, don't be angry. Just make sure when your time comes, you serve with your own name on the company's gate." The crowd laughed and clapped, but his words cut deep. He wasn't just a millionaire. He was a reminder that dignity doesn't come from position but from purpose. Moral of the story: never despise humble beginnings. The broom in your hand today could be the pen that signs your destiny tomorrow. Hard work opens doors, but only integrity keeps them open. Chinedu's story teaches us that even the smallest act of honesty can turn servants into leaders and turn shame into legacy. Every folk tale has a lesson, and this one's just the beginning. If this moment touched your heart, don't let it end here. Hit that like button to show your love. Subscribe so you never miss the next chapter. And share this video with someone who needs to hear this today. Because sometimes, one story can change everything.